Hi, my name is Oliver. I'm the Foundry casting engineer and pattern shop supervisor here at Milwaukee Valve. And today we will be talking about the pattern making process and the core box making process. We, here in the pattern shop, build the patterns and the core boxes that we use out there in our mold lines to make the molds where the metal will be poured into. And what we get a model of the casting from our engineering department. And from there, what we do, we will model up the pattern, and we will also model up the mold. And what we get from our engineering department is just the casting and the core. And what we end up doing, we end up building the core boxes in case we need a core, and the pattern, to make the molds. And the mold model will be used in a simulation software to run iterations of the design. So essentially, all the gating that's not part of the casting that you see over here, that's something that we design here and we prove out in the simulation software before we cut the tool. Once we have our mold modeled, we run a simulation of the filling of the metal and the solidification of the metal into the mold cavity. And we look at several things. Right now you can see the filling of the mold cavity with a temperature gradient on your left-hand side. Other things we also look at velocities inside the mold. So essentially you're seeing that same filling video here, but instead of looking at a temperature distribution, you're looking at a velocity distribution. What we do, we looked at common defect in casting. So example, shrinkage porosity. Obviously, we had a gating design on the right-hand side where you had shrinkage in your casting, so you don't want that. So we changed the gating, and we're able to pull the shrinkage inside the gating, which is what we want, that the gating gets recycled. That's not something we send on to the machine shop. So that enables us to run design iterations before even having to cut the tooling. So that's great. Other things we look at as a common defect for us in the valve business is microporosity. So here we pressure test all of our valves, and we also pressure test most of the components that go into the valve. And sometimes you have a casting that's machined and it looks great, and you pressure test it and it's leaking, or there's a little water weeping when you pull it off the test fixture, and that's not good. So essentially you look at it with your naked eye and you cannot see anything, but you have that water weeping out, and that's due to microporosity in a lot of cases. And that's something that we can adjust with the software. So the areas in purple that you can see at noon at 3 o'clock are purple. That gives you a likeliness of microporosity, and we can change the gating to eliminate that. And that's what we did. Once we have the gating and the plate layout designed, we go ahead and send the models to, we finish our pattern models and we send that to the CNC department, and there the CNCs are programmed. And then we cut everything on the CNCs, in the CNCs, and then we do the final assembly on the bench. And same thing for our core boxes. That's a cast iron core box, but we also make them in aluminum or plastic. Our patterns typically are in plastic, and depending on what mold line they go onto, the plates will be aluminum or wood, and sometimes our patterns will be made out of aluminum, and our gating usually is made out of plastic. So I'm Oliver with Milwaukee Valve, and that was the pattern and core box making process.